Imperial County, John Doe, 2003. The remains of a man were found in Ocotillo, California on October 2, 2003. They believe he was a Hispanic male, around 20 to 40. He had photos in his wallet that might suggest he was a husband and a father, or perhaps an uncle. They believe he was a Hispanic male in his 30s to 40s, which means he was born in 1963 to 1983. He was possibly from Mexico, as he was found in the Ocotillo Mountains, which is a route currently traveled by individuals from Mexico planning to cross over into California. He had a wallet with the name Avila Torres carved into it, and another word that appears to be Reina or Rana. The photo of the kids reminds me of photos I've had taken at Walmart and Sears when my kids are little, although my backgrounds didn't include Winnie the Pooh. The chair they have the baby in appears to be standard for mass picture-taking services, like you might find in a department store, as well as the background. He wasn't a tall man, maybe 5'4", and it appears he'd been deceased about 1 month when he was found in 2003. Someone out there is missing him, and hopefully someone at some point will recognize the people found within these photos. The Imperial County John Doe, 2003, has gone unidentified for 18 years. The Broward County Jane Doe, 1982. A young woman was found in Deerfield Beach, Florida in 1982. She had a healed fracture of one vertebrae in her mid-back, and it may have occurred as a result of a car accident or a fall from a height greater than 10 feet, or perhaps a direct blow. However, this didn't happen at the time of death as it had healed. She wore a size 32 and was wearing a striped pullover sweater as well as a gold necklace that had a brown bead every 2 inches. They believe she was between 11 to 20 years of age, and this would mean she was born between 1962 and 1971. Likely more toward the earlier date than the latter. She was 5'5" and only around 85 pounds. This is really a low weight for her height. She was found floating face down in the Rinker Rock Pit Pond. They believe she'd been there for several weeks. This does make me wonder how accurate the weight estimate for her is because of the time she'd been there. So if somebody's missing somebody and the weight looks wrong, I would take that with a grain of salt. It's just that this is such a low weight for 5'5". It's perhaps why they think she may have been on the younger end. Kids these days seem to grow taller sooner than they did back when I was growing up. But this was 1982. Anything is possible. I'd love to know what you think. I personally wonder if she isn't in her mid-teens to 20, assuming age 20 is the max age. It's possible she was homeless and hadn't eaten in a while, or it was a younger girl who was experiencing a growth spurt. The Broward County Jane Doe has gone unidentified for 40 years. The Washington County John Doe, 1998, also known as the Webb Hill John Doe. On December 7, 1998, 3 teenage boys were hiking near Webb Hill in St. George, Utah, when they saw a shirt sleeve flapping in the wind near the top of the hill. They had been told by their parents to not climb anywhere up there, near the rock cliffs. However, they were too curious not to, and they felt they had to investigate. It's likely others had been hesitant to climb up into that area themselves because when they got up there, they found a man who had been there 75 years or more. It's a little staggering to think of how easily someone can go undetected. It was a young man who at that time should have had his whole life ahead of him, but life wasn't easy back then. Not that it's easy now, I guess, but they had things a little harder. He had wear on his boots that seemed to indicate he traveled to where he was on horseback. He was young, often referred to as 16, but he's also listed as being 14 to 17. He had a fractured left hand at some point that had healed. He also had 13 ribs on his right side, even though 12 pairs is the norm. His right arm was superdeveloped, which means he was probably a heavy industry worker, perhaps working as a miner to support his family. It was clear whatever he did was very physical. Back then, it was normal to start working at a young age, and around then, child labor was increasingly considered important to industries under the guise of advancing the wealth of the nation. This was less prevalent in Utah, however, which is where he was found, compared to the eastern United States. They were finally starting to crack down on young workers around that time, trying to protect kids who were being forced to work. Sometimes the kids were the sole support of the family. Even after all this time, they were able to tell the young man had been suffering from a pulmonary infection. That means either one or both of his lungs were severely inflamed and likely filled with fluid. That may have caused a fever, chills, or maybe pneumonia. He was wearing 2 shirts, a jacket, and had a silver belt buckle. His Marshall Field boots were sold through a catalog in 1917. The Webb Hill John Doe has gone unidentified for 23 years, but he's likely gone unidentified for 100 years, if not more. The Lee County John Doe, 2001. This man was struck by a vehicle on Interstate 75 near Bonita Springs, Florida. He appears to have been Hispanic, had black hair, brown eyes, and he was missing his right ring finger, which had been amputated during his life. He was short of stature, around 5'5" and 145 pounds. They believe he was 21 to 35, which would mean he would likely have been born around 1966 to 1980. If you have any idea who this man was, please call the number listed. The Lee County John Doe has gone unidentified for 21 years. The Huerfano County Jane Doe, 1999. This young woman was found wearing a Bansformer brand sleeveless crop top in a size medium. She had Wranglers and a sports bra. She had on men's thermal underwear with the Winston cigarette logo on the back, as well as dark brown sandals in a size 9 or 10, and those were made in Italy. She was 5'7" to 6 feet. She was likely white, Hispanic, or Native American, and it's possible her hair was styled in dreadlocks. A man from Albuquerque, New Mexico wrote a letter dated August 10, 1999, and he sent it to authorities saying he discovered a woman's remains 3 weeks earlier inside of an old abandoned refrigerator in a secluded area about 4 miles off exit 56 on Red Rocks Road near Walsenburg, Colorado. I always include in my videos an approximate date of birth if I can. Missing from this case, however, is an estimate of how long she'd been inside the refrigerator. As a result, please take this with even more of a grain of salt than usual. Assuming she'd only been there for a short amount of time, her date of birth would be 1954 to 1969. But I doubt this is accurate, as she would probably been there longer. They do mention that the refrigerator was lying on its side, with the door partly open, and the remains were skeletal. They had been scattered by scavengers. There was trash inside of the refrigerator, and that was dated 1988 to 1992. So likely she had been there since 1992. That would change her possible dates of birth to 1947 to 1962. But of course, those are estimates that are rough to start with. The refrigerator itself was a Philco brand, likely made between 1940 to 1960. It had a lever handle and was a single-door unit. It's also important to note that her teeth were out of alignment to the point that it's noticeable. Her case is being treated as a homicide, but if the cause of death was determined, it wasn't listed. The Huerfano Jane Doe has gone unidentified for 23 years. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. Take care of yourselves and each other.